Okay, let's get into this. This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Jailton Almeida, who this past weekend at the Spectrum Center in Charlotte, North Carolina for UFC on ABC, UFC Fight Night, Rozenstruik versus Almeida, defeated Jairzinho Rozenstruik by submission via rear naked choke. The official time, 3:43 of the very first round. Mark, Almeida making it to the big stage and succeeding and impressing. Give us your take on his performance.
Not a ton of drama in that one. It's like clockwork for this man thus far. You did have that one moment, like in the first 5 seconds, where Rozenstruik stuffed a takedown and kind of shoved Almeida away, and you were like, oh, damn. And then 25 more seconds tick away, and the fight's over. Not actually, but effectively, because Almeida's second shot gets it to the ground, and he gets to go to work. And he was patient. He spent like a good 3 minutes probably working to get to mount, and Rozenstruik was calm. You could tell he was trying very hard not to do anything dumb that would provide an opening, but it didn't matter. Almeida's just surgical. He gets to mount finally at like a minute 30 left. The ground and pound starts, Rozenstruik turns, and the fight is over. Yet another sub for Almeida, yet another win for Almeida where he basically never even gets touched, and the dominance at this point is just getting a bit silly. So I wouldn't be shocked if this man has a hard time getting someone to say yes for his next fight.
Omar, let's bring you in here. Talking technique, give us your take on Almeida's, Mark's word was perfect, surgicalness in his biggest win of his career thus far.
For me, it really kind of established the fact right now that the heavyweight division is very lacking in ground technique, right? Jailton Almeida is like 30 pounds less than this man. Like you'd have to put a weight vest on him to even come close to Rozenstruik. And it didn't really matter. There's so much technique, so much precision behind how Jailton Almeida comes inside. And the one thing that makes him a problem is his takedowns. The fact that he can take you down. As a jiu-jitsu guy, that's generally the knock, right? Is when they get to the ground, they'll get you. And like we saw with Kron Gracie, what if he can't really get you to the ground that way?
Yeah.
Right? Or keep you down to the ground. And but Almeida doesn't really have that problem. He is quite exceptional getting down to the ground, keeping you down to the ground, and just chewing you up. Big guys, I almost think, are his specialty because they just don't know what they're doing. And we've had this era now for the last however many years now, especially since technical guys now like DC and, Stipe haven't really been super, DC retired obviously, but Stipe not having been very active and stuff like that, where the equalizers have come in and just wrecked dudes because everybody's just standing. Curtis Blades can't find an entry to save his life, quite literally. Yeah. Otherwise, he would be probably a champion right now. But he leads face first and doesn't dip down and shoot in. And like, I'm not trying to tell Curtis Blades how to wrestle, but at the same time, it's on camera. I don't know what to tell you,
Right.
So, he's a problem. And I think that, I feel like the way Jones is in public now, like he's obviously a heel. I feel like he's full heel at this point.
You think so? Jones?
Yeah, 100%. He stays talking shit out of left field. Unprompted. No one asked.
Everybody talks shit.
Not like Jones. Like he'll throw jabs at people, especially, and I feel like it's, the more I think about it, I feel like they're subtle jabs to people because he kind of wants these fights, right? The Ngannou thing we might, we'll get to in a little bit, saying like, oh, I might just fight this next guy and I might just leave. I don't have anything else to do in the division. And it's almost one, you think, oh, he's probably, telling the truth and, why even come back? And another part of it is it might be the way Izzy kind of talks in the different sense where he's saying, show me something, right? Because we're going to get to a point now where Almeida is going to end up grinding through the entire division. Now, how the hell are you going to deny him a title shot? And unless you just leave the division, to me, it seems like a bad look, especially if you're trying to go GOAT. Almeida is a killer, and it won't take him very long to run through, I think, the rest of the top of the division before he's warranted a title fight.
I mean, there are guys who can grapple when you get toward the top. I mean, obviously, Bones and Stipe, as you said, but I'm saying before we even
Sure.
get there, there is Sergey Spivak, who can grapple. There's Curtis Blades, who's a wrestler, as you said. Tom Aspinall can grapple. Like,
Yep.
there are challenges that are not guys he's just going to walk through. I mean, maybe he will, but I'm saying you wouldn't think as easily as you figured he would Rozenstruik.
100%. But when you talk about all of the guys that you just mentioned, not a lot of them have had those performances even earlier on in their career when they were fighting guys that weren't at the top of the division. Almeida so far, a guy who's smaller than basically everybody, has had these fucking fantastic performances against guys I think to a certain extent, we expect him to have fantastic performances against, right? So he's almost living up to this hype that we've put on top of him. Maybe that starts to slow down once he gets to the elite of the elite. Maybe he's not finishing guys left and right. But at the same time, against guys, from a performance standpoint, against guys that you just mentioned, he still seems to be kind of cream of the crop. You know what I mean? I would put him up against a lot of these top guys just based on performance.
Yeah, I mean, he's Brazilian Khabib. I think we said it in his debut.
Brazilian Khabib.
It's friggin' accurate.
The beast, man.
Yeah, man, this marks 14 in a row for Maladinho Almeida. Still has yet to win a fight by decision. All of these wins have come by way of finish, most of them in the first round. And yet another one over a huge name in Biggie Boy Rozenstruik. Let's talk about Rozenstruik first and where he goes from here. So, after capping a 10-0 run to start his MMA career, he capped that run. That 10th win was his infamous knockout and lip destruction against Alistair Overeem. He's gone 3-5 since. Mark, what would you do with Rozenstruik next?
I thought that finally we could do Derek Lewis and Jairzinho Rozenstruik, which you guys have heard me ask for a lot of times on this show. But Derek Lewis just like 2 days ago got booked against Marcos Rogerio de Lima. So I guess that one's out the window. So I will say Tai Tuivasa. I want Tai to get a little bit of a step down after the 2 losses. I don't want him to fight another top 5 level guy. Let him potentially at least get a reset and let those 2 boys bang, and one of them gets right back on track, maybe with a big knockout.
Love that. Omar, do you have any other names that you would throw out there?
This is for Rozenstruik.
Yes.
What is Alexander Romanov doing?
Romanov. Didn't
I
he
don't
just
I don't think he's matched up yet.
didn't he just look terrible
Yes.
in his last fight?
Yes.
I'm sorry, did Rozenstruik look great?
That was he didn't look great because of a style thing. Romanov looked like I don't know
Listen, Rozenstruik came in with a lot of hype. He knocked a few guys out. He's been up and down. Like, to me, he's still got to prove himself. Because to me, he's still just a couple of like barbells on his hand. He doesn't seem to have, at least in my opinion, a ton of technique. You know what I mean? He has technique for what works for him, but when it comes to overall an elite level, I'm not really sold, and I never have been on Rozenstruik. To me, he's always been like maybe a top 10, top 15 fighter. But like the tippity top, these guys where it comes, these small little areas, I just don't think he has it, man. I think he has a lot of openings that guys can exploit, and I think a lot of them have.
I'm sure we'll find out where he's ranked in the Prio rankings, but
Amen.
let's talk about now.
The only rankings that matter, gentlemen.
That's right. It's true.
I'll tell you now because he's not in my movers because he only fell a couple spots, so it wasn't noteworthy enough for me to include. But he's number 11 in my rankings.
I like it.
Moment.
It checks.
Okay, let's turn our attention to this rising star, Jailton Almeida. Like I said, he's now won 14 in a row as a pro. Still undefeated in the UFC, obviously. Still yet to win a fight by decision. Omar, if your dreams come true, who is Almeida fighting next?
I mean, a lot of these names are really interesting. The Aspinalls, the Spivaks, the Blades. Curtis Blades just dropped the ball again, didn't he?
Yep. Yeah, he lost
recently.
Yes.
Pavlich. Knocked out.
Yeah. Give him Blades. Give him Blades.
Blades?
Give him a real wrestler. Give him a real grappler. Because I think at this point, that's probably the biggest knock, right? Is he's fighting all these guys that we know will probably kill him if they put his hands on him, but none of them are able to put their hands on him. So give him a guy who probably who knows when Curtis Blades shows up? He probably won't wrestle at all in that fight. But give him a guy who on paper should be wrestling and kind of working that way. Maybe he strikes with him and maybe Almeida knocks him out. Maybe he gets knocked out. Who knows? But I think he deserves the shot. I think the performances warrants it, and I think the matchup stylistically is very, very interesting on paper.
Mark, any other names?
So that's who I was going to say. And I thought you guys were going to be surprised that I moved him that far up the line. But yeah, I mean, so there's a reason that I say that. First of all, he asked for Tuivasa. That does nothing for me. We just saw that fight. He just beat Rozenstruik. You know what I mean? I like Tuivasa more than Rozenstruik, but style-wise, it's the same fight.
It's a horrible match.
So there are plenty of unbooked guys at heavyweight. Gane, Spivak, Derek Lewis, granted, that's the same fight again. Volkov, and Blades. The problem is you need to get someone to say yes to this fight. A lot of these guys kind of like Spivak just broke through. I'm sure that's the last thing he wants to do. Volkov's trying to work his way back up. Curtis Blades is sitting there, and he keeps fumbling the bag every time he gets back to the top. And he needs some type of springboard to let him get right back into the mix. And this is it. Like, let him be the one to take this challenge. I could see him saying yes to it. And we get to see, as Omar alluded to, an actual test of Jailton Almeida. And maybe it's not even the offensive wrestling from Blades. It may just be the defensive wrestling in that he is not letting Almeida take him down. And then he is able to outstrike Almeida. It could go that route too. So it would answer a lot of questions, and I would like to take that step. I don't need to see Almeida run through another striker.
It is the most intriguing matchup that I can think of for Almeida. It's also a tremendous matchup for Blades, the wrestler versus the jiu-jitsu practitioner. My eyes will be glued. And I've been saying for, I don't even know how long at this point, that I think that the most interesting stylistic matchup for Jon Jones, in my opinion, is Curtis Blades. I now have some questions about Jailton Almeida against Jon Jones and some intrigue there as well, given his size, clear athleticism, his frame, and his jiu-jitsu. So at heavyweight, man, oh man, I would love to see that if that could happen. But who knows, as Omar was alluding to earlier, who knows if Jones is even going to be there.